think we finally have to add a few more colors to the palette today. We definitely have to add more paint because we are running out of red, blue, and yellow. Actually, I haven't added that much for a while now because I had so much alizarin crimson and ultramarine and cadmium yellow on here that didn't have to do anything for quite a while, but it might be about that time. These are a little bit more dried out than they appear. Come to think of it, I want to take my palette knife and scrape some of the dried stuff off there eventually. I don't know. Sometimes it's nice to have the dried paint on there just as a reference point for where the colors go. Because if you start peeling that off, you start losing track of that. I don't know, it's not like a super important thing, but it helps you just know where the colors go, I guess. God. You can always really smell ultramarine. Remember how I told you can smell colors sometimes? Like cadmium red is a very identifiable scent. I think French ultramarine is another one where you can really get a whiff of that color. There's always the lingering scent of linseed oil. You can't really get away from it. Some people are really bothered by the scent of stuff. My mom hates the smell of oil paints. She always complains about that. Always complains about the smell of oil paint. And I don't really know what to tell her. I tell her that, sorry, not much I can do about that. If there's no scent, it means I haven't done any painting. Yeah. So, we're going to continue, obviously, with our grid technique. We've been working with tiles across this painting, and the proportions have really been coming together over just 2 tiles so far, so I'm pretty hopeful about what we're going to do today, but we still have a lot to do because we haven't done hardly any work on this one over here. Let's go ahead and get to it, guys. This should be pretty simple to do. A lot of this is just the pants, and then there's a sheet down below on this tile, so God, I'm thinking this is going to go pretty quick. Maybe. Famous last words for sure, because every time you think something's going to go easy with art, boy, it has other ideas. Things always have a way of taking a lot longer than you think they're going to. I've noticed that. You say, oh, this isn't going to take very long at all, and then, well, before you know it, it's taken 2, maybe 3, who knows, maybe sometimes longer, and yeah, we're getting pretty decent color here. I think I'm just going to use a smidge of yellow on that. You think that with the gray I'm using that we'd be somewhere in the ballpark already, but got a hair in the paint. Nah, we don't want no hairs in the paint. No. Let's get a paper towel over here so we can place that aside, get it out of the way. Hairs always have a funny way of ending up in the paint. I absolutely hate it. I suppose it is what it is, but doesn't mean I have to like it. So the mud color that we use, the gray color that I have right there, it's a color that I use pretty frequently to help start as a base. And it's kind of just a mix of everything. All you guys out there probably heard it a bunch of times by now, but it is kind of important that we talk about it from time to time. Because maybe you never thought of using all the colors on your palette and mix up like a new color. Maybe you never thought, oh hey, let's go ahead and take all those and do something new with them. Because maybe you just throw away the color after you're done. God, I used to do that. And, well, oil paint, depends what brand you pick, but they don't come cheap. Not really. Alright, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do something bold and daring, I think. And we're just going to mix a whole bunch of yellow into that color, because I feel like I want something more of a green here than what I'm actually getting. Oh, it's weird. It's like a very muted. Oh, this feels like such a weird color at times. I have a hard time mixing the color I want. I think it's just a matter of value. Because I think if I get just enough violet in this, I think we'll have something on the right track. Okay. Okay, maybe we'll run with this. There. It's kind of a nice violet color. Kind of a dark violet color. We might want to add some white to that though. Just a little bit. Yeah. I think we want it to be about that value, guys. There. Now things are shaping up. Okay, let's just work on covering a lot of this. I was observing my painting. Every so often I step back from my painting to take a look at it. I look over everything that I've done and I try to decide, geez, do I like this? Am I screwing things up? You always wonder if you're screwing things up when you look at your painting. That's a fact right there. Sometimes I think that my paintings are just the worst. And then sometimes I think, you know what, that's not so bad. To myself, hey, that's a pretty okay painting, all things considered. And I remember one time, this is funny, I remember one time I was over at my aunt's house, and a long time ago I actually painted a big watercolor for her. She requested a watercolor because she said she liked watercolor better. So I painted her a watercolor picture and she initially didn't like it. God, imagine that, like, she wanted a watercolor picture and my mother essentially begged me to do a watercolor painting for her, right? And then after the fact she said she didn't care for it. But she gradually warmed up to it, to the point where she hung it over her bed, or well, behind her bed, behind her bed, on the wall behind her bed. And I remember going over to her apartment a little while ago and thinking to myself, I ran into the painting and I said, God, that's kind of a nice painting, who painted that? And then I stood there for a second and then it hit me, wait a minute, I painted that. Because it'd been so long since I gave her that painting that I completely forgot that I painted this picture ages ago. And the funny part is that I painted it during a sort of, I guess, modernist period that I was going through, because I was studying a lot of art history and I was doing a lot of really, really colorful stuff. I was trying to push my use of color as much as I could, and I guess something about seeing the Fauves and seeing the Impressionists and seeing the Expressionists and seeing all those different artists of the time. Granted, pretty old artists. Art from a long time ago, like 120 years ago. But still, it made quite the impression on me. Couldn't stop thinking about all that. You know, good art tends to stand the test of time, regardless of when it was made. I don't know if I'd say that I'm much of any of those schools of art. I don't even know how to categorize what I'm doing. I don't even know they should be categorized. I don't even know that anyone cares, but you know, I just paint these pictures because it makes me feel good, and I try to paint until I feel happy with them. And you know, if someone enjoys them along the way, then all the better. I think you just gotta paint what feels good to you. You can't spend too much time thinking about all the ins and outs, because you'll go crazy doing it. Like if you try so hard to be top dog in the art world, you'll go absolutely crazy. Those people are miserable. Besides which, I'm not sure the people who spend money on paintings are necessarily going to be all that interested in things that I see popular in art right now. Well, God, what even is popular in art? I have no idea. It's been sort of this anti-art thing for a long time, and it's hard to say what's popular anymore. Okay, let's bring this over in here. We'll just make the pan go like this way. We'll make it curve a little bit. That's not too shabby. It'll make it, give it a little lip right there. Yeah, that's not so bad. The leg is actually going to come all the way over here. Yeah, that's going to look good. Okay, let's bring this. Now what I'm doing is I'm kind of crossing over through the grid occasionally, and you got to do that just because if you don't, well, it's going to look a little bit wacky when you go back to it. And you can paint through it, I guess. If you're doing a watercolor, what you do before you start painting is you just erase the grid after you've got a satisfactory drawing, and then you make any corrections you need to along the way before you get it going again, and then you just continue doing your thing. I make it sound so much, I guess, easier than it really is. And don't get me wrong, it's not simple. Nothing about painting is simple. There's a lot of would-be artists out there who just have to realize that painting, drawing, all that business, it's hard. It's hard. And there's no way around it. There's no way around that. You have to work at it. You just draw and draw and draw until finally it becomes, I guess you could say, second nature, sort of. But even then, how much easier does it really get? Well, it doesn't get that easy, but it gets easier. That much I'll tell you. Still, anything worth doing requires a lot of practice. AI can't replace that. AI is one of the worst things ever, I swear to God. Well, we'll say this. AI is not necessarily good, or not necessarily evil, but people are trying to use it as a replacement for everything. You just can't do that. AI can help with a lot of different tasks, menial tasks, but it's not up to the creative work. Because all it does is regurgitate ideas that have already been done. All it does is take other people's ideas and try to present them as its own. Literally just a plagiarism machine. I see people trying to act like AI levels the playing field on art, and no, it doesn't really. You still have to work at it. You still have to draw. If you're not willing to draw, you'll never get any better. I remember reading a quote from Stephen King in his book on writing where he said, if you're not willing to read for 4 hours a day and write for 4 hours a day, you can never hope to become good. And, God, that seems like a heck of a commitment, but I understand what he's saying. If you're not willing to put in the work, you're not going to get good. And that's true enough. Yeah, that's the facts right there. Yeah, we got some pretty interesting things happening already, and we're not even, like, really applying ourselves all that hard here. We're just going in and throwing down some really gnarly looking violets. Really cool looking stuff. I love this sort of thing where we're just kind of freestyling a little bit. Maybe not really, but you know what I mean. Okay, right about here is going to be a little bit of a note for that. The figure has a remote, a TV remote, lying on its tummy. And then right about up around to the halfway point, right about there, is where the tummy ends. So let's get ourselves just a little violet here. Let me make sure you guys can kind of see that. You can kind of see that, yeah. I don't want to go ahead and just paint things all willy-nilly that you guys can't see, because that wouldn't be very polite, would it? Nah. I mean, you guys are here to see the action. Okay, so this is a very big leg that we're painting, and just make sure that we got some of those folds coming in here. There. You kind of see kind of the folds of the pans being formed. Now, let's just remember right now that the object here is not necessarily to make things absolutely perfect. The object is to get the color down reasonably accurate, but mostly just get our proportions right. That is our #1 goal. But, you know, if we do a little bit of painting along the way, if we find some surprises, all the better. I've been looking at my watercolor palette recently. I don't know if you guys like watercolor painting. I like watercolor painting. I actually, when I first started painting, the first paintings I did were acrylic and watercolor. And I initially took pretty well to watercolor, and then I don't know what happened. I stopped painting in watercolors for a long time, and I was never really all that good at it. Well, I was sometimes good at it, and sometimes bad at it. I don't know, it's kind of a paradoxical thing there. Point being, though, yeah, I was pretty okay at watercolor, but I never really got serious about watercolor until, like, a few years ago when I was prompted to get better at it, and then I really applied myself. And now I've been kind of looking at all my watercolors recently because I haven't done any watercolor painting in a while. And I've been evaluating how I want to approach watercolor painting going forward. Okay, let's check how that looks. That doesn't look so bad. I'll just take a smidge of that cadmium, throw it in, and then let the mud over here get involved too. I'm using my sap green, trying to find a fine line between getting it too bright and getting it too dark. And there's always that fine line with phthalo colors. Okay, I think we're somewhere in the ballpark of where we want to go here, so let's start outlining some things over here. I still can't get over, like, how good sap green is. If you haven't tried a sap green, there's all kinds of different sap greens out there, so it's kind of hard to give you a recommendation. The one I'm using is from a brand that has been discontinued, unfortunately. Someone asked about the brand of paint I was using, and well, the brand of paint I'm using has been discontinued. It, well, not really discontinued, but effectively discontinued. And what I mean by that is that every color in the line has been discontinued except the white and the black. Because Permabla used to offer a whole line of paints. They don't really do that anymore because the company that made the paints got sold. So every color in the line got discontinued. It's funny. I was actually working with the company to try and extend the line a little bit because I told them that I told the owner that the colors were a little stuck in the 70s and the 80s. I said to him that I've made a pretty good palette out of the stuff that you have, but you guys maybe might want to add a couple of things in the very near future because the line feels kind of old. So, really listened to me, and they were about to do something, but well, a lot of different things happened. We'll just say that a lot of things happened all at once, and none of that ever panned out. And now things kind of just are the way they are. And there's not much you can do about that. No. No, there sure isn't. Okay, I don't know. I want to start adding some very light cadmium yellow notes here. Here, let's add just a little bit. I'm going to take some of my cadmium yellow and get it in there. I love cadmium yellow. Who doesn't love a little cadmium yellow? There's just no other color like it. No other color is quite so bright. No other color lasts quite so long. It's the sturdiest bright yellow there is. So it's really hard to replace. There's other yellows that are pretty decent, but there's nothing like this one. Guys, if you've never painted with a cadmium color before, you really gotta try it sometime. Because paintings take on a certain glow with cadmium colors. There's a reason that artists everywhere swear by them. And it's because nothing else has that glow. It's the way that the cadmium reflects light. Other colors don't really do it the same way cadmium does. There's a certain luminance that goes along with it, and when you try to replace it with another color, you lose that. So, like I say, it's awfully difficult to stop painting with it. So, really, why would you want to stop? Like, if you know that this color is going to get you the results you want, what is the incentive to stop? Really? Alright, one more round of white here. It's really hard to get these colors just light enough. Feels like you're constantly trying to get things just light enough. Okay. I think I got it somewhere in the ballpark though. Right about here. Okay, well, let's take some of that and just throw some in here. There. This paint was a little muddy the other day. It's alright. Cadmium yellow and sap green. That's mostly what we're doing here. A lot of cadmium yellow and sap green on this. Getting some good results here. I think I want to get some of my Prussian blue out soon. And we've been really hammering the Prussian blue. Prussian blue has been doing a lot of heavy lifting on this painting. And for good reason. It just looks good. So why stop using it? If it works and it's getting the results you want, why would you stop doing it? That's a fair question. And I don't have an answer for it. The answer is, well, you wouldn't. You would just keep doing what you're doing, wouldn't you? Yeah, you sure would. I sometimes think to myself about getting out the cerulean blue that I have, because I have a tube of cerulean blue that I actually really like the color on. Technically, I use three blues. I use Prussian blue, cerulean blue, and French ultramarine. It's a little unusual in this day and age to use Prussian blue the way that I do. Not many people use Prussian blue, I don't think. It's a very common color, though. It's very, very commonly used in industrial purposes, so it's never going away, right? It's also used as a cure for certain stuff. So it's got many different industrial uses, many different medical uses. It's not going anywhere, so don't have any fear about Prussian blue. And pretty much all the blues that I use, I'm never really afraid of them going away. If you wonder why I'm afraid of that sort of thing, it's because colors have a chance of going away. Because if industrial purposes stop using colors, it doesn't mean anything good for you as an artist, because art materials are such a small niche that it doesn't make it worthwhile to keep manufacturing the pigment just for art. Now, there are some places that manufacture their pigments in-house so that you can keep using the color indefinitely. Like, a good example is a bunch of independent manufacturers will make lead white because it's such a popular color. Lead white. If that blows your mind for a second, think about that. That they make lead white just because painters can't stop using it. Well, painters are very finicky about the colors. I don't use lead anymore. I used to be pretty heavy on the lead. Another good one that they manufacture a lot is Winsor Newton and Rose Madder. They're really big on the Rose Madder. And to be fair, they make the best Rose Madder. No one else makes it like they do. It is such a beautiful color. I like it better as a watercolor, I think, than an oil paint. If we're talking oil paint, I'd much rather just use alizarin crimson. But when it comes to watercolor, oh, there's nothing quite like sweet, sweet Rose Madder. But I better be careful. I'll start waxing reminiscent about Rose Madder all. I love that color. I've used it, in a word, a lot. The light fastness on it is, it's fine. It's not the best, but it's certainly not the worst either. It's way better than alizarin crimson is. Not that that's a particularly high bar. I'm realizing that some of you guys are probably saying to yourselves, if you haven't looked into these things, well, what's light fatness? What's light fastness? What that means, light fastness, is how much a color can resist sunlight. So, if a color can resist sunlight for many, many hours without any effect whatsoever, that means it's very light fast. If it fades slightly, well, it's not too light fast, but it's light fast enough. And then if it fades a lot, that means that it's no good. You don't want to use that color. There's a lot of colors that are still out there that do that. Not as many as there used to be. Watercolor painting used to have it real rough. We'll say that the paints these days are way better than they used to be back in, like, God, 150 years ago or so, 200 years ago. They had all kinds of new colors coming out at the time then, but none of them were hardly any good. Very few of them were any good. Those poor guys. They had to kind of just take what they could get and make the best of it. These days we got all kinds of choices. So, yeah. These are way better now than they used to be. I would say by and large, my life is better than it used to be. My life was a little rough for a while. I was kind of lost. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Sometimes I still feel that way, but I feel better about it than I did. Sometimes the uncertainty gets to you. You're like, and it affects your worth as a person. But we all have those moments where we're not sure if we're on the right path. And it bothers you a lot. And sometimes maybe you're not on the right path. But if that happens, you can always course correct. It's not like we're doomed to stay on the same path, right? No, not really. It's not like you're obligated to keep doing what you're doing if you're not happy. You can get a sense of how naked these sections were. We barely did anything in these, didn't we? Yeah, a little bit. Here. Let me try a little something here. I'm just going to mix a little bit of the sap green with... Oh, let's get a little mud in here, I guess. A little mud in the sap. See what that color looks like. That doesn't look too bad. Here. Sometimes that mud is just what the doctor ordered. There it is. I don't know. You might be able to get a little bit more of a yellow color in there. Maybe want to get just a touch more yellow. It's possible. There, that yellow gives it a certain glow, doesn't it? Yeah, it kind of does. It does. Don't mind that at all. I will say that I think I want to add a little bit of white to that. And we'll have have something a little bit more in the ballpark of what we're looking for. It's pretty much the same color we already had there, isn't it? A little bit. Maybe just a little bit more white. Okay. I find that just finding reasons to insert colors is reason enough. Yeah, that was deep. Finding reasons to insert colors are the best reasons of all. Let's just add, I don't know, maybe a little bit more yellow to this. And a little bit more white. I try to find all kinds of excuses to add colors to paintings because I want my colors to just stand out, and I want to put all these colors on display in some capacity, but you can't force it, I guess. There's a balance, a harmony that goes with things. And you try to find that balance the best you can. And sometimes it feels like you lose sight of it. Other times it feels like things are really coming together. I think this is one of those times where I don't think we're losing sight of anything. I think that this is coming together in some capacity. I think that the painting is looking pretty acceptable. Although we probably want to start thinking about, I don't know, maybe just a little bit more of the sap and all that down in here. Like that. Kind of sounds like I'm scrubbing colors in, doesn't it? Well, if it sounds like it, it's because I kind of am. Alright. There's a certain... I don't know, capturing these folds is sometimes it just feels like folds are all haphazard. Folds are all over the place. We're doing okay for capturing them. It's just... I think we need to... Here's what we need to do. We need to take this, and then we're going to go all the way over to here. Right about there. And we're going to bring that line right about there. Okay. And that's going to make things just a wee more interesting, I think. Yeah, that's fine. And maybe down in here we'll look at a couple more things for our... Just get a little bit more of that color that we've been using right down in there. Kind of a slight shadow color. There's like a whole bunch of different mid-tones in here. They're all fighting against each other. And I wonder to myself if maybe we shouldn't let them have a little bit more... Well, I don't know if we need to think about them too hard. Maybe. We can always push values if we want, but I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily feel worth it. not for so trivial a detail. And it is kind of a trivial detail, because, I mean, you really stop and think about it. God, does anyone care that much about the sheet that this person's lying on? Probably not. Here, let's put a little bit of that Prussian blue highlight in there. A little bit of that baby blue. Baby blue, yeah. Okay. I think right in here. Very nice. Alright, now down in here, let's throw a little something. Oh yeah. Now this is getting interesting. Sometimes you just get real quiet while you paint. Go into a fugue state. Try to talk to you guys. Sometimes it's hard to not go into that state and start just doing things. Hmm. Okay. All right. I think we've got some interesting things happening here. I think though, I don't know. Just take some of this and maybe some of this and bring that down there. Tone that down a little bit. Just so that we have a little bit more of a connection between everything. Now we have everything all sorted with proportions and all that. We can get ourselves back on track here. Okay. Yeah, things are feeling pretty good, guys. All right. I won't say it's complete, but we have this tile in working shape, and that is half the battle itself. Overall, say that's a okay tile that we did today. I don't know if I feel as strongly about it as the last two, but still, the major goal of all this was to get the proportions to get the proportions in order, and we did that. God, speaking like I got a mouthful of mush. Nah. Everything feels pretty good right now. We'll mix all of our colors into our great big pile over here. We've got our working mud for the next session. And we're ready for another grid space on our next session, guys. I am a little worried about the color harmony, but I think it will all work out in the end because all the colors are connected for the most part. I don't feel like there's anything that's too crazy going on. The more colors you introduce into a painting, the greater the chance of a lack of color harmony. But I think we're going to be okay there. I don't feel like anything's really disconnected right now. And if things are, we'll work on it, right? Alright guys, have a great day everyone. I'll see you next time.